school, I realized that those kids who were bringing cash for whatever reason, a reason that was secret to me, they would not eat the school lunch anymore. And I went to Golden State Middle School. Right now it's Riverbank Elementary School. And those kids, they would buy beef jerky, they would buy pizza, they would buy top ramen, and that was like the thing. I remember thinking and envying them, and I remember not having any money to go and pay for that, for all of those things. I think I remember there was like 1 or 2 times where I'm like, okay, fine. I don't know where I got $1 or $2 or whatever it was for the top ramen. I went and I got myself that top ramen and I sat in the quad and I ate it, and I felt special on that day. I felt rich on that day. But the thing is, from the moment that I thought that I was just like everybody else to the moment that I realized that I was poor, nothing objectively changed. Nothing changed from the moment where I didn't know that I was poor to the moment that I did know that I was poor. The only thing that changed was what was in my head. The only thing that changed is what I thought of myself. And then I saw the light. And I started comparing myself to the kids who could afford the pizza, who could afford the beef jerky, who could afford the top ramen. And all of a sudden my worldview had changed. My perception of who I was, where I stood on the rank compared with the other kids, all of a sudden that changed, and I dropped a few levels. I thought I was just like everybody else, but it turns out I wasn't. And it's not like my dad all of a sudden started earning less after that realization. It's just something that clicked in my head. And we subjectively look at a lot of things in the world. We subjectively look at a lot of things that we take as fact. And one of those things that we look at is the fact that we look at the world and we envy it, or we are thankful for it. And we, to some degree, assume that envy or that gratitude, that jealousy or that thankfulness, that's a fact. That's just the way that we are. And the reality is that those things are malleable. They're changeable. They're something that we have to look at, analyze, and figure out how we're going to go forward. So your series that you're going through is talking about dealing with these specific questions. Dealing with these specific problems, dealing with jealousy, and dealing with gratitude. And those things, they are intertwined. And the fact is that our subjective view of those things somehow at some point changes into a fact. It becomes reality. It is the way that things are. It is whether I'm envious of people, whether I'm grateful for things, whatever that might be, it becomes a fact. And that's when we start looking at God, when we start looking at our relationship with God in the wrong way. So the question then is, how do we deal with these questions? Ultimately determines what we believe about ourselves and our feelings. And the topic is jealousy and gratitude. And these two words that I've been kind of using interchangeably, jealousy, gratitude, envy, thankfulness, they sound very much similar. They sound very much the same thing, but they're not. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit tweaked. And I want to define them very precisely so that as we move on forward, the distinction between these two things makes sense. Envy is a feeling. Envy is something that we have within our heart. It is something that precedes jealousy. And when we see it in our hearts, when we recognize it, we can then recognize the actions that we take, the jealous actions that we take. And one is a feeling, envy is a feeling, jealousy is an action. And in the same way, thankfulness is a feeling. It's something that we feel inside. Gratefulness is the manifestation of that feeling. It's the way that we take what is inside of us and we project it onto the world. We force it to act on the world. We force it to act on our friends, on our close ones. And if we want to orient our actions, the things that we actually do to people properly, we first have to orient our feelings. I'm going to be reading from Numbers chapter 11. And this is the story of Israel as they became trapped in the desert. And at this point, they didn't know that they were going to be trapped, but their envy and their jealousy and their desire to go back, their refusal to acknowledge the state that they were in, trapped them in that desert for 40 years. So they just left Egypt. It's been a year, and this is what we read. Numbers 11, verse 1. Now the people became like those who complain of adversity in the hearing of the Lord. The rabble, peasantry, who were among them had greedy desires, and also the sons of Israel wept again and said, "Who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our appetite is gone. There is nothing at all to look at except this manna." Now Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, each man in the doorway of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly, and Moses was displeased. Jealousy is actions that follow envy. Jealousy are the actions. Jealousy is the action that we take that follows envy. And envy is a feeling. Specifically, it's the feeling that you don't have enough. You don't have all that you deserve. Envy says, I've got something. We all have something. At the very least, we all have our lives. And it says, whatever I have, it's not enough. Somebody else has more. Somebody else has better. Somebody else has something that I don't have. And we direct that envy. We direct that feeling. We direct that action at the people around us. And most of all, especially for believers, we direct it at God. And we say, God, you are the cause. You are the reason that I am not like everybody else. I am not as good as everybody else. And envy starts within you, and it becomes discontent. It becomes discontent with your place in life, with your place in the social structure, and to a certain degree, that discontent is what pushes you forward, and you say, you know what, I'm not happy where I am, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to try harder. But as soon as that discontent turns around and it becomes something that we believe as a fact, it is simply that I'm in this place, there is nothing that can change, and it is God's fault, it is people's fault, then we get stuck and we become jealous, and we become vengeful, and we become discontent. And if you want to get to the point where jealousy is not something that destroys your life, that cripples your life, you have to begin at the point of envy. You have to begin at the point where you are unhappy, with what you have. And jealousy and envy, they flow from three different directions. They flow from three different places where we can kind of find discontent. And the first one is material envy. The Israelites in the desert pushed back against God because they were discontent with the material wealth, the material goods that they had. They had food, but it wasn't the right kind. They had shelter, but it wasn't the right place. They had food to eat, but it wasn't fish and it wasn't meat. They had everything, but they were still discontent with it all. They still were not happy. They still weren't content with what they have. And we experience the same kind of discontent. A guy posts a picture of a truck, and it's a brand new, and it's a non-salvage truck, and you've got a non-salvage car. You know, you finally advanced past that stage. And last week, that car was perfectly fine. It wasn't brand new, but it was fairly new. It wasn't salvage. It was clean title. And all of a sudden, you were happy, and all of a sudden, you were not. Nothing changed. Nothing fundamentally changed. Girls, for you, you see somebody post on Instagram, and it's a beautiful sunset, and the only thing that you can pay attention is to where that photo is geolocated to. Where is that person tagged? What is the resort? How much does it cost? What is it per night? How much is the flight out there? Can I afford it? Can I stay there for a week? Can I stay there for a day? Can I afford to stay and eat in the restaurant? And if you can't, oh, God help that person, because they will never be in your good graces. You don't care about the sunset. You don't care about the meal. You don't care about how much fun they had. Envy creeps into your heart. Why am I not there? Why can I not be there? And the envy grows because you see what others have and you're jealous. We have relational envy. And sometimes what that looks like is you're stuck at home and all of a sudden you open up Snapchat because you got nothing else to do and everybody's grouped up in this one location. You're like, wait a second, there's a party and I wasn't invited? And you check and sure enough, everybody's there. Everybody's having fun and you're not there. And you ask, why am I not there? Why was I not invited? Somebody posts a picture of a party that you actually were at. And what you notice is that you've got one person, you've got the second person, and then there's this crop where you're supposed to be and you're not included. And the explanation that they give you is they say, well, Instagram likes it for a square format. It's like, dude, that hasn't been true for ages. Why did you crop me out? Why am I not included in that group? You might be a person who's single and you say, why am I not able to find a relationship? Why am I not able to find somebody who will care for me and love for me? My friends who are far uglier and far less savvy than me, far less appealing than me, they've got friends, they've got somebody, they've got a relationship. Why don't I? And envy creeps into our heart because we assume that we're supposed to have something, we're supposed to be somebody, and your envy grows when you see others having something that you don't. And then we can have circumstantial envy. In another part of Exodus, the Israelites, they were grumbling against God. And you know what they said? They said, God took us out of Egypt and he put us into this desert so that we would die. That was God's purpose. That was God's goal. And they didn't realize that, look, your life is significantly better than it was. Yes, you're in a period of transition. You're in a period of, weird flux where you're constantly moving when you don't know where you're going to sleep the following day, but your life is better than it was. And this circumstantial envy, what it says to us is we look at somebody else's position, we look at somebody else's state in life, and we say, why am I not there? You're on your 5th year of college and somebody finished in 4, and you're like, well, good for you, look at you finishing in 4 years. And we wonder, why am I not there? Why is it taking me 5 years? Why did I have to work through college? Why couldn't I take as many units? And we start envying. And your envy continues, and it pushes you towards jealousy. And it pushes you towards action, and it pushes you to have certain interactions with that person that you wouldn't otherwise. And we ask ourselves, what is the source of this envy? The source of this envy is us comparing ourselves, comparing what we have to what somebody else has. And social media, it's done this great service to humanity, but at the same time, this great disservice. Because all of a sudden, you went from a place where you said, I know I'm not as popular as the most popular kid. I don't know by what degree, I don't know by what amount, but I know I'm less popular than that person. And now, thanks to social media, we can quantify it. You got 23 likes on your photo. That person got 233 likes on their photo. That means they are 803.4% more popular than you. Congratulations. We've put a number on it. We've quantified it. We've made something that we knew was there. We knew that it existed. And all of a sudden, we've put a number on it. And sure, there might be a day when you say, well, I got 234 likes. I feel good about myself. I beat out that person. I don't have to be envious about that one thing that I posted. And we just keep going back and back and back. And we feel like losers because we look at the best that people have and we compare it to our average or we compare it to our worst. And we say, my life's not that good. My life isn't as put together. My life isn't as photogenic. And we feel like losers. And you might say, well, that's silly. That's stupid to look at something like that. And nobody said that jealousy was logical. Nobody said that jealousy was reasonable. Nobody said that jealousy makes sense. It's just what happens if we're not cautious. Social media is insidious like that. And you probably realize that kind of comparison is poison. It poisons you and your heart, and it poisons what you believe about yourself, and it poisons what you believe about others. But you feel the tug, you feel the pull of it, you feel like you need to compare to know where you stand, that you don't care. Jonathan Edwards said, never underestimate the spiritual power of envy. Never underestimate the spiritual power of envy. And the thing is that we feel that envy, it gives us a pit in our stomach. It makes a hole in our stomach. It makes us feel bad in our heart, but it doesn't affect our spiritual nature in the same way. And I will contend with you that it affects it far greater. In fact, in verse 6 of what we just read, when Israel went out and they said that that our appetite is gone, what it literally means is that my soul has dried up. Our souls have dried up. We saw what we had. We saw where we were, and now we see where we're at now, and we compare it, and we are envious of ourselves. We're envious of our past selves, and our souls have dried up. Yet we treat envy, we treat the desire to be like somebody else as merely a physical problem. And its spiritual impact is far, far more. In envy, it gives birth to jealousy, and jealousy starts to rot our souls. Literally rot our souls. It rots us down, and it destroys our ability to feel thankfulness. And you can identify in your soul envy by looking at how jealousy manifests itself in your life. If jealousy, if envy has grown big enough, if envy has grown significantly enough to become a major part of your life, it will manifest itself in jealousy. And what you can be sure of is if you've got jealousy being manifest in your life, that's 100% guaranteed that there is envy lurking and growing and bubbling within your soul. And Israel said, this manna is terrible. It doesn't taste like onions. And God says it's not supposed to taste like onions. You're not supposed to have what somebody else has. Yet we compare the heavenly bread and we say, this heavenly bread doesn't taste like earthly onions. God, what have you given me? And I'm tired of heavenly bread. I want earthly bread. I want earthly food. And I'm so glad for the people that give us a small taste of reality. They give us a small taste of what our envy is actually doing to our souls. I was listening to the missionaries that came from Papua New Guinea. And the lady says, look, we're not here for your money. I just want to describe to you how good you've got it. She says that they travel for 2 hours to come to church, and when it starts to rain, nobody leaves. Everybody sits and they get soaked, and they listen to the preacher who doesn't have a microphone. He uses literally a traffic cone as a makeshift bullhorn, and he speaks the truth, and the people sit there, and they don't sit there until they're tired. They don't sit there until they have to go somewhere. They sit until it concludes, and they want more, and they want to remain. And we get a little taste of that, and we say, how can I be envious of that? I don't care about that. That's not what I'm comparing myself to. I'm comparing myself to those who are equal to me, and we don't realize what we have. We have the manna from heaven, and we reject it, and we say that it is not important, it is not relevant. How do we compare ourselves to each other is what it's important. And we rot our souls. Never underestimate the spiritual power of envy. Never underestimate its impact on you, and to put blinders on you to what reality is. You hear heartbreaking stories of a mom who traveled for 6 hours with her sick baby on her back, and she had 2 more hours to go. When she laid out that baby onto a field, it died right there, and she was so close, yet she was so far, and we don't realize what kind of blessings we have. We have manna from heaven, and we allow envy to creep into our heart. We allow envy to undermine the gratitude that we're supposed to have, that you are required. It is not optional to have gratitude. You are required to have it, yet we allow envy to undercut it. We allow it to we allow it to disrupt our soul, to disrupt our thinking. I love chemistry, especially when that chemistry results in me setting something on fire. So 4th of July is a great time of year for me. And what makes the 4th of July fun for me, at least here in California, is that I can watch my kids watch fireworks. And granted, the California fireworks aren't really anything to brag about, but I do like this one shower. It's called Purple Rain, and what it is it's this amber, yellowish fountain that spits out these purple balls. And I've always wondered, well, what is it that makes them glow a certain color? Like, what makes it orange and what makes it yellow? And the reality is that you can actually mix specific chemicals, you can add them, and when you burn them, they burn different colors. The color of the flame is determined by the substance that you put into that flame. So here you've got basically a spectrum of different colors. You've got everything from purples to greens to yellows to pinks. Iridium chloride, it makes a violet flame. Boric acid is green. Barium chloride is orange. Lithium chloride is pink. And what you can do is you can look at the color of the flame and you can say, this is what the chemical that makes it up. The reason why it's burning, the reason that it burns a specific color is because of this substance that is inside of it. Our feelings function like the flame, they function like the smoke of a fire. If you see a fire in your neighborhood, you can follow the smoke to find out if it's your house that's on fire. In the same way, you can follow the smoke, you can follow and see the flame that your heart is emitting to tell you what is burning within your heart. What is the thing that you are on fire for? What is the thing that is generating that flame within you? Is it something that is good? Is it something that is burning good, honest, gratefulness? Or is it something that is burning green, envy that destroys your soul? You can see that. You can see the smoke. You can see the fire. You can trace it back and you can figure out what the source is. And if you're particularly attentive to the flames and to the smoke, you can tell what's inside. If you look at those purple balls that shoot out of the firework, you can say, hey, that's that specific chemical. That's what's making that color. And I can look at myself and I can look at my soul and I can say, those actions, those are the result of envy. Those are the result of me being envious of somebody, and it's generating a certain color. It's generating a certain flame within me. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. Be attentive to the fire that burns within your soul. What is it? What is its composition? What is its source? And we can either burn with jealousy that is fueled by envy, and the colors will show, or we can burn with thankfulness as a result of the gratitude that we have. And gratitude really comes down to not forgetting God's goodness. Jealousy will always cause you to forget God's goodness, whereas gratitude will always remind you of it. Verse 1 says, now the people became like those who complain of adversity in the hearing of the Lord. And that's a crazy statement to hear. We're literally, I think it's like 12 or 13 months after Israel has left Egypt. They left bondage. They left slavery. They left a place where they had no control over their day. They had to produce a certain number of bricks. They had to work from sun up to sundown. They didn't have any freedom to move. They didn't have any freedom to leave. They didn't have any freedom to take their kids and put them into a better place. They were stuck from generation to generation. For 400 years, they were stuck there. And after 400 years, they leave, and after 12 months, they say, you know what? Where we're at right now is not a good place. And the only thing that they can say while eating literal bread from heaven is, we're enduring hardship. This is really, really hard. This heavenly bread is so delicious, but I'd prefer to be a slave with onions. It seems so silly to us. It seems, how can a person be in that frame of mind, yet we are in that frame of mind? You will look at your problems and you will say, these are insurmountable problems. These are problems that I have to contend with every single day. And you, I guarantee, you ask any of those children in Papua New Guinea, you ask any of those children in Africa, and they come up to you and you tell them, hey, these are my problems, and they say those are baloney problems. There is nothing about those problems that is at all significant. Let me tell you what a real problem is. Yet we can look at Israel, yet we can look at these people and we can say, well, they're silly. How can they not see? Yet we're blind to the same thing.